Good morning, guys. Today we are going to continue with Rocktober and look at some models of how rocks are actually formed. In our last class where we introduced this module, we talked about the question of how are these rocks, some from the Rocky Mountains and some from the Great Plains in Nebraska, how are they the same minerals if they are completely different types of rock? In order to answer that question, we need to first understand how rocks are actually formed. So we're going to model that today, and we'll talk about why we're going to model that. And maybe as you go throughout the lesson, you might understand my little Mr. Summers Bitmoji there a little bit more. But first, we're going to move on to our big questions. We have a few that we're trying to answer today. Our first one is, what causes there to be different types of rocks? Why are there two clearly different types of rocks that have the same minerals? And hopefully we can learn a little bit about that from our model today. Our second question is, how does sedimentary rock actually form? And our third is, how does igneous rock form? Now, we kind of answered those last two questions in our first module about the geology of Mars, but I want to get into a little bit more detail and actually witness those rocks being formed the best we can. So in your do first, you looked at this picture of the red rocks in Utah, and you can see very clearly that there are a whole bunch of stripes, like horizontal stripes going across. Now, each of those stripes is a different rock formation. That means that a different layer of rock was actually formed, and that's what you see in those stripes. So your question was, how long do you think those rocks took to form? Well, hopefully for each layer you answered in years. If you said months or weeks, you were way off. If you said like a lifetime of years, like let's say 100, 90, 80, 75, again, way off. If you said a few hundred, maybe a few thousand, getting better, but still way off. Each of these layers of rocks took millions of years to form. This entire rock layer together is probably about 2 billion years old. Even just this section up here, probably about 500 million years. So each one of these little layers takes millions and millions of years. So we're going to look at a video that actually has a lot to do with that when it comes to rocks and how long they might take to change and form. And this video is actually going to look more at weathering and erosion. Now, when I first start this video, we're going to look at what the rock formation looks like before this tide or all of this water flows in throughout the day. So right here, I see a rock formation. And if you were to guess how high that water goes, I would probably guess, before even watching this, right to about these points where I see this kind of line in these rocks. So we're going to watch as this tide comes in and the water fills up, where it stops and then it goes back out. And this is a time-lapse video of an entire day of this water going in and out. Plenty of people walking around before the tide comes in, and you can start to see slowly, this is taking place over hours, the water starts to fill up. And right now it's at high tide, and then it starts going back down. And it was right about where I guessed it might be. Now, watching that video of about 24 hours, or almost 24 hours, do you ever actually notice the rock change? Probably not, right? I don't see any actual change in that rock from when the water goes up to when the water goes down. But clearly, there has been changes to that rock because of the water, and I can see that in the actual line that's formed in that rock. So that's why today we're going to actually be looking at a model instead of this rock being formed in real life. Because between our picture of the red rocks that take hundreds of millions of years to form, and then what we see when it comes to weathering and erosion actually carving into this rock, both of those things are going to take a really long time if I want to study them in real life and actually watch them happen. So instead, we're going to do a model, and that's what you're going to see in the next slide. So you're going to move on to the next section where I am going to be there waiting for you in my kitchen doing a model. I will see you there.